Sharp Chat! Sharp Chat!
Back in 2015, the Barbershop Harmony Society held their international convention in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A quartet there made their first appearance and got 9th place in the contest. This quartet sings a variety of songs in different styles such as jazz, a cappella, and of course classic barbershop. Each year that they have competed, they've only gotten higher up in the ranks, and this year they got in 3rd place at the international contest in Salt Lake City. Ladies and gentlemen, our guests for today, Quorum.
I love to sing about the moon and the June and the spring, and I can sing anything with the swing and make it ring because I love to sing.
Wow, awesome. Thank you, that was awesome. Well, thank you guys for being with us for today. So, first off, I'd just like to ask, how'd you guys get together? How did Quorum form? Mr. Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, the funny story is Gary and I, throughout the past many years and through the AIC, we've kind of always had this little thing where we get together with a couple guys, with your dad being one of them, and we sang some tags. And one day I told Gary, I said, "Hey man, you should like consider singing bass." Not only he filled in with bass on Keepsake, when Don had to do some standing out, and so he wasn't a veteran of bass, but I mean he was just killing it out back then. And I was like, let's try this on bass, and he said, "Ah, man, I can never keep up with you." That was his response. And I said, "Well,
And
Don,
it's true.
it's true." I said, "Well, Don Barnick did it, so I think you can do it just fine." And it took a few more years after that, but we continued to do these tags and get together at after AIC Functions International. And one time we were singing tags. What convention was it?
It was Toronto.
It was Toronto. We were singing tags. Actually, with a couple other guys. Puck was there, and one other guy, Joe Cronus.
Sure.
And he was singing baritone at that time. But that's kind of how we decided to sing together, and it slowly, really quickly actually transitioned into him singing bass because our luck was doing really great, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we started out. I know Gary always wanted to sing with Puck because they are brother-in-laws.
Oh, cool.
So that was always a goal for Gary. Their wives are married, or their sisters. Their sisters, sorry. So it just kind of organically happened, and that's how we really started rolling.
Very cool, very cool. So my next question, so where did the name Quorum come from? Like, what does it mean? Which Buck, do you want to answer?
Well, we went through a very long list of possible names when we were trying to come up with one, and there were some personalities in the quartet that wanted specific things for the name of the quartet.
Sure.
Starting with the letter Q was one of them. And you know, it's just kind of one of those things when you go down the list, you're like, how about this one? Nope. How about this one? Somebody else says nope. How about this one? Somebody else says nope. So we went through a very long list, and finally we came up with Quorum, and it just kind of was one that nobody said nope to, so we were
That
like,
was
okay,
it.
that's going to be it. Yeah.
Literally, we were sitting at a Jimmy John's.
We were at a
right?
Jimmy John's.
Yeah.
having lunch.
It's our quartet lunch is Jimmy John's. We
Yeah.
always go there during
The official
rehearsals.
restaurant.
It's the official restaurant of Quorum, if nobody knew that.
Gotcha.
And so we were sitting around the table and we're like, does anybody hate this? Nah, we don't hate
I
this.
hate it.
Quorum it is.
Quorum it is.
Nice. That's funny. And what does it mean?
Well, a quorum really is it's just a majority. It's usually used in like a government sense. So, like to have a quorum on something, you have if there's 100 people, there needs to be 51 there before you can take a vote, and that's called a quorum. And it's funny because that word was almost used as a joke in a quartet I was in with your dad. Max Q had whatever our credit card. And if 3 of us were together, then we could use the quartet card. We'd say, we've got a quorum, so we can go have lunch on the quartet, as long as 3 of us were there. So that was a little tie into my previous quartet, so I loved it.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think I'd like to get the audience to know you guys a little bit more personally. So, what are your backgrounds in barbershop and whatnot? Nathan, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. I started singing in college. I happened to go to the same school that Dr. Jim Henry, who conducts the Ambassadors of Harmony and sings with the Quartet Crossroads and Forecast House King, was teaching at. So I got to really dive into barbershop when I got to school there. And I kind of started with a college quartet there with Brian Ziegler from After Hours originally, and Aaron Pollard from Frontier, who's the current, well, they just retired as the collegiate gold medalists, I guess.
Yeah.
Or dethroned by wildfire, not dethroned, but whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I started singing with those guys, and I transitioned to a mixed quartet called Double Date with my wife Michaela.
That's where I know you from.
That's
I
right.
saw
That's
you
right.
there.
That's
That's right. You were here.
That's right. And we won the mixed quartet competition in Germany, and just kept singing barbershop.
Very cool. Very cool.
Can't stop, won't stop.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, Gary?
Well, I first started barbershop at my senior year. I was walking through the mall and I heard this sound and I was just drawn to it, much like, Pied Piper sort of thing. And
Sure.
I was fortunate to go to Bowling Green State University, and that's where I really got into barbershop. Our chorus had a quartet, and I auditioned to be a member of that quartet, and I've been in an active quartet ever since, and that was quite a long time ago. And the sounds that these quartets made it was something to hear it, but it was an entirely different thing to participate. And boy, just like everybody else, I was hooked as soon as I made that sound, in a quartet.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually have a very similar story. Just many years later at Bowling Green State University. That's where I went to college. Many years later after that. And being involved in the men's chorus, that was just part of it, was barbershop. It was a legacy left by R.D. Matthew when he was there, and he had already retired by the time I got there, but the barbershop piece stuck around. And there were a lot of people that were there when he was there when I first got there as well, and that's where I first really had. I did sing in a quartet in high school, but it wasn't something where I had any idea of what the society was or anything like that. It was just you sing these notes, and so when I got to college, that's where it kind of became a thing. And I've been in college and big boy quartets ever since then. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I was 13 when I started barbershop, and it was with my dad. Actually, he had joined the society before I was born, and then he had just gotten interested later on in life to get back into it. And so he took me to a rehearsal, and I was 13, so it's almost been 30 years since I was since I became a member, and yeah, I'm just basically raised in it. That's kind of how I got into it, and I've just been hooked ever since, and not a whole lot of great stories beyond that,
Yeah, sure. Well, very cool, guys. Very cool. So I want to ask you a little bit about this past year in international. So I just want to know, you all had the highest score in the finals round. So I was just wondering, do you feel like you won the finals round?
Well, the response throughout the week was great. We had an awesome experience in Salt Lake, and the crowds are so big. Sometimes you'll come off the stage and you'll think, did they like us? Because that space was so large, and sometimes it feels like you're getting golf clap, and then you come out into the house and everyone's like, man, that was amazing, and we're like, really? Because it didn't really feel like it. But on Saturday night, that response that after our opening song there was no doubt that people were into it, and we feed off that. I think every quartet just loves to get that affirmation after you do something. And both of the songs we did in finals were new for us. In fact, the ballad was the first time we had ever performed it in front of an audience, so we really didn't know how it was going to be received, and it worked out to be really, really good.
Yeah.
So we felt great about the finals. The way that the contest works, you don't know. Are we sitting, where are we? Are we in first? Are we in 10th?
Sure.
And so, a lot of people like to play that game and try to anticipate where the chips are going to fall.
Yeah.
And so some people were saying, man, you guys are going to take it. And enough people say that, you start to believe it. And so
Definitely.
we thought, well, maybe
Maybe it's possible.
maybe it's possible. So we felt great.
Awesome. Very cool. And yeah, both of those new songs were amazing. You guys crushed them. Mr. Gary, you have gone from tenor to baritone to bass over the years. So I'm just curious, what changes did you have to make mentally and vocally to switch from baritone to bass this time around?
Well, even though I like sang baritone in my last quartet or tenor, like I've always been like in my regular life, I sing all sorts of parts as a high school music teacher. So I try to keep my full range active.
Yeah.
And when I was with Max Q, more so than now, I used to also make learning tracks on the side for people, choruses and such. I don't do as much of that anymore. But I was always singing in all four parts. And bass is something that I've always loved to do. I just don't have the gifts to sing those incredibly low tones, but I still like to do it. So these guys were willing to, to have arrangements that are customized so that I don't have to do those really the lowest tones.
Sure.
My bass voice, when I'm singing, the lower I get, the softer my voice becomes. So I might be able to sing whatever note on a given day, it just might be really, really soft. So what do these guys do? Well, even Chris, he just gets softer when it gets really low. But I wouldn't say that I've gone through any sorts of like changes to my routine. I love singing all of the parts, and each one of them is fulfilling.
Sure.
But I don't know if I could even pick a favorite, because I just love harmony. I know it sounds like cheesy, but it's true. I really just love it.
Sure. Got you. All right. Next question, Nathan.
Yeah.
So I would just want to know, because you competed with double dates many times and you've won twice, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what are some differences, if any, both vocally and mentally, between singing with Quorum and then singing with double date?
Sure. Quorum's work ethic is amazing to me, especially joining the group later. I mean, they'll get an arrangement, and then everybody makes their own like remote learning track, like within a few days of getting the arrangement.
Yeah.
And so you just have to be prepared and ready to be there. And these guys have been super nice the entire time. We take contests just one round at a time, and we show up and we sing through things, we work on it, and then we just do the next round and do the next round. So it never feels like there's a lot of pressure, or we don't really think of it as like a huge contest week. It's just, what are we doing the next day? Cool. And that, for me, like at least mentally, makes it seem like not such a big deal. To just take it little small chunks like that. So it's been really great, and just happy to be a part of Quorum.
Very cool. Very cool. So over the years, every year that you've competed, you've only improved. So I just want to know, Huck, do you want to answer this? I just want to know, what have you been changing to keep improving?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that for us especially, our personal life schedules make it so that we're not able to be together for rehearsals quite as often as maybe even our previous individual quartets have allowed. And so there's something to be said for just how much that helps a quartet improve, just being in the same place at the same time. So that's part of it, is really, each year we've just been together longer. But I think it also has to do with the fact that we've worked with several wonderful coaches throughout our time together. Each coach has given us some great things to build off of, and I feel like this year especially, there were some things that we were able to figure out that really helped us to make an even bigger leap this year than we had in the past from a score standpoint.
Sure.
And I think that definitely helps as well. I don't know if I'm missing anything from that standpoint, but
It's very true, though.
yeah.
I understand. Yeah, definitely. So Gary and Chris, you two have already won before. You won with Chris. You won with Gotcha, and then Gary, you won with Max Q and Platinum. So I'm just wondering, what made you two want to get back in the game? What made you want to continue to compete?
I have no idea. I don't know why I'm doing this again. So much more pressure the second time around, I'll tell you that.
Sure.
It's difficult. Basically what happens is you you reach that apex in the quartet, and then you run with it for a little while until you kind of just decide, no, let's kind of hang it up or let's retire or whatever, depending on what part of life you are in as individuals. And then you sit in the audience and you go, I think I could do that. You know, I'm pretty sure I could do that better than that guy up there, you know. So you kind of get that itch a little bit, and then you start singing with people, and then you start going, let's try to do this again. And I did that a little bit with Redline back in 2008. I sang with those guys. I kind of filled in for that quartet flip side, and then we changed our name when I came into the mix. And that was only 1 year stint, about a year and a half. We only competed once at international. And then just life things made me move away from that. And then so it wasn't until, what year was our first year? 15? Yeah, so from 2008 to 15, I hadn't competed again. So, you know, you just get that, I don't know, everybody says you get that itch, you know. That's kind of, then once you do it, you start regretting why you're doing it. Because the pressure's just so high, and it's awful. You know, when you're young and you do it, you don't care. You're so naive to the fact. I was 26 when I won the first time, and it's just like I just go out there and just sing. You know, just scream it up. You know, do it. You know, now it's a little bit much more pressure, and plus the quartets are just so much better. It's really not. I mean, it's fun to sing with this group of quartets, and at the same time, it's just like, God, these guys are so good. And, oh my God, another good quartet, you know? So it just adds a little bit more, slight more pressure and so forth, but we still love what we're doing.
Sure, very cool.
Yeah.
Gary?
Well, for me, it was similar to that. You know, I was always in an active quartet ever since I got into my first one at Bowling Green State University that Artie Matthey put together, and thank you, Artie. He's just an amazing person. But you know, for me, my quartet that I was in XQ just was not as active, and we just weren't doing as much together, and I just really missed it.
Sure.
And when we started singing these tags in Toronto, and that's really how a lot of quartets are formed. You start singing tags, and you're like, man, this sounds really good. Let's do more of this.
Sure. And
so I missed it so much. I missed singing. I missed being in a quartet, and I always wanted to be in a quartet with my brother-in-law, and I'm just so glad for that, to have that experience with him.
Very cool.
And so I just love it. I'll do it as long as I can.
Sure. So what's next for Quorum? What do you got coming up?
Well, we're going to build off of our success in Salt Lake City. You know, it's hard not to kind of sit back and just enjoy that success, because it really was awesome for us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're back to it, trying to come up with new material. People, even though there's songs of ours that they love to hear, we know that our audiences want to hear something new. And so we've got people that are, our arrangers, our coaches are saying, hey, consider this. And so we're trying to figure out what we're going to keep and what might be replaced, and try to keep the exciting things coming for Quorum.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, guys. If you would, we have a tradition here at Shop Chat. Would you sing us off with our Shop Chat tag?
We'd love to.
Shop Chat!
Well, thank you, guys.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching this episode of Shop Chat.
Shop